Om Nilambujashyamal Komalangam Sita Samaropita Vamabhagam Panau Maha Sayakacharu Chapam Namami Ramam Raghuvanshanatham. Relations to Lord Rama, whose complexion is like a blue lotus, is very tender and delightful in appearance. Sita is seated on his left side and he is carrying a powerful bow and arrow in his hands. Presently, in Bala Kanda of Sri Ramcharitmanas, the verse number 52 is closing and 53 will come soon. That's the context of my talk. Remember the story of Shiva and Sati. Shiva and Sati were having an aerial trip. I'm giving a little joke to it, but and they saw by their aerial view the story of Rama. Sita had been kidnapped and Rama was grieving for Sita, asking every tree, where has Sita gone? And Lord Shiva bows down to Rama, saying, Jai Satchidananda. Jai, glory to existence, knowledge, bliss, absolute. Glory to God of gods. Glory to Brahman. Sati couldn't understand that. He asks Shiva, how can this person who is grieving like ordinary soul caught in the world process, how can he be God, God of gods, and for you to bow down to him? And Shiva then says to Sati, why don't you yourself try it out? Test him. Sati takes the form of Sita and sits on the very path that Rama and Lakshmana are coming to. Lakshmana sees Sati from a distance and smiles and tells Rama, she has come to spoil me drama. And as they approach Sati, they're not duped by her Sati's act of being Sita. Rather, they simply offer adorations. Jori pani prabhu kin pranamu, pita sameta lina nijanamu. Lord Rama, with folded hands, offered adorations to Sati Devi, using his name along with his father. I, son of King Dasharatha, am offering adorations to you, the Devi. And where is that Lord Shiva, the destroyer of all that is evil? O Devi, why are you wandering alone without Shiva? Ram bachana mridu gudha suni, upaja ati sankoch, sati sabhit mahesh pahi, shali hridaya bada soch. It's a very profound teaching is being given through in an allegorical way. Shiva is soul within. The essential nature of the soul is always the absolute self. But in this context, he is playing the role of a soul. Sati is intellect. The relationship between soul and intellect. Sati is the daughter of a great king known as Daksha. Daksha means being expert, skilled, industrious. That's the role of intellect. In all progress, scientific, technical, all progress in this world is based on sharpness of intellect. But intellect that operates in a most precise manner, that's what science is. All scientific advancement requires absolute precision. And precisional aspect of function of intellect. From intellect's point of view, even God is viewed as a content of the world process. Your intellect begins to ask question, when did God first come? If he was first, what led him to think of creating the world? Let's open the pages of history. Go 1 million years before. Go trillion years before. Look for the cause, if not on Earth planet, somewhere in other planets of the Earth. I'm just elaborating just to make you understand that intellect's way of understanding is limited. But from practical point of view, intellect is the brightest instrument of the soul for all progress. But if you want to attain liberation, you should be brighter. The intellect begins to put the question, who is Rama? Who am I? That's again, I'm giving you a broader understanding. And Shiva tells Sati that Rama is Satchidananda, is Brahman. But Sati can't understand it. Intellect is told by the Upanishads that the soul in you is Brahman. Brahman is the reality. The intellect now has a project. At first stage, should the intellect just bow down to the teachings of the Guru and say, oh yes, I'm Brahman, okay, you say so. But if that is the type of intellect you have, that intellect is defective. Sati is representing an intellect that is not defective, implying even though Shiva said it, Sati won't believe in it unless she tries to test Rama. But exploring Rama, exploring the highest truth through your intellect, that's not possible. It is possible if intellect becomes intuitional. But as long as the intellect is the daughter of ego principle, that is Daksha, that intellect will not have realization of the self. So Sati is unable to realize Rama. As we follow it, you will see how the different colors come out of it. Ram bachan mridu gudha suni, upaja ati sankoch, Sati sabhit mahesh pahi, chali hridaya bada soch. Having heard the words of Shiva, rather words of Rama, the Rama that asked her, O Devi, where are you? Where is Lord Shiva? Why are you wandering alone? And Sati is expressing how, in a gentle manner, Rama touched the core of her feeling. And that's an act of wisdom. You touch where it pinches. The act of touching is mridu. It's soft, but it is good. It has a serious and profounder effect. So now then, Sati, without saying anything, Sankoch, completely contracted in her heart. Sankoch is that stage of your body when you feel so ashamed that you could have shrunk into a little turtle. And with a strange fear in her heart, this allegorical story, this fear is not real fear. It's rather a quality. Intellect that is awed by the teaching, all is Brahman. And now that intellect has the problem of resolving, realizing it. But then the intellect, no matter how intellectual, does not grasp that as intellect you are like a caterpillar. And no matter how skilled the caterpillar may be, it's not a butterfly. The butterfly, a transformation occurs in the caterpillar, a metamorphosis. Similarly, intellect undergoes a transformation, but transformation through practice of samadhi. And all that is brought out into storyline. So she thinks within herself that I did not accept Shiva's words and I acted in my own way. She assumed the role of Sita. This in the story, it seems an interesting act. But that is the interesting challenge in every individual. Your intellect is sati. In early stage of spiritual education, sati is given an intellectual knowledge that she is really Sita. Intellect that pretends to be Sita. Reason that pretends to be Vivek Buddhi. That pretext is called affirmation. But from the stage where affirmation has started to the stage where realization comes, there are many stages. And all those stages have been brought out in a very subtle way. In a storyline, she thinks within herself, why is it I did not believe in Lord Shankara's words and I began to test Rama? What will I say to Shiva? A terrible sense of internal fire began to blaze in her heart. That's what we call mumukshutva, burning aspiration. Jana Ram Sati Dukha Pava, Nij Prabhav Kuch Pragati Janava, Sati Dik Kautuk Mat Magajata, Age Ram Sahit Shri Bhrata. Now, when intellect is in this state, an act of grace opens the intellect to a broader understanding of the world. The world that is making you dazed and amazed. First try to understand how big is that world. And in this vast universe, what is substantial? Sati dik kautukam gajata, age Rama sahit Shri Brata. Now Sati sees a strange phenomenon. Rama, Lakshmana and Sita, they are together. And they are moving on their select path. फिर चितवा पाछे प्रभु देखा, सहित बंधु सिय सुंदर बेशा. जहाँ चित वहीं तहाँ प्रभु आसीना, से वहीं सिद्ध मुनीश प्रवीणा. She turned her head backwards. And there are also the same scene. Rama, Lakshmana and Sita. Rama is God himself. Lakshmana is willpower. God decked by willpower. All the three are one and the same. And Sita is Viveka Buddhi, the intuitive function of the intellect that has become intuitional. Viveka Buddhi. Viveka Buddhi is Prakriti at her best. The Brahman, Prakriti, and an evolution from Brahman and Prakriti is cosmic mind. These three are fundamentals in your spiritual sadhana. So no matter which world you go to, no matter which universe your focus, your mind is captivated by, all things will change. But the basic sadhana will not change. Go to Alaska, go to New Zealand, go to North Pole, go to South Pole. If you want realization, Rama in you has to discover Sita. Lakshmana must help in this project. Or to put it in another way, these three important ingredients of mystical reality, soul, cosmic mind, and Vivek Buddhi, they remain unaltered no matter where you are. Everything changes. Market scene changes. Society changes. Their clothes change. Politics change. But here in the storyline, Rama is seen in different setup. देखे शिव विधि विष्णु अनेका, अमित प्रभाव एक ते एका. He saw so many gods. Here gods relate to Saguna Brahman, different aspects, attributes of God. Those attributes change. But wherever her attention is directed, she sees Rama, Sita and Lakshmana exactly the same. But everything changes. In one loka, Vishnu may be playing a role, Shiva is doing something, Brahma is busy with some other job. In another loka, they are doing little different jobs. They are set in different situations. And so you can go on imagining. In a storyline, Rama in one loka is being worshipped by great sages and saints. In another loka, the same worship set is in a different way. But one thing is constant, Rama is just the same. Everybody, she looks around, from loka to loka, everybody is changing. In other words, all your experiences in the world are experiences in the realm of Maya. And all experiences in the realm of Maya are constantly changing. They are like a cinema show. In a cinema show, every frame of picture changes into another frame after frame. But the screen remains the same. The screen-like reality has been presented in three aspects: Rama, soul; Sita, Viveka Buddhi; and Lakshmana, cosmic willpower. They must come together in order to allow your soul to attain liberation. So no matter how big and extensive this world is, your mind should not be interested in the world process, because it is the unending variations. In these unending variations, the basic ingredients that lead you to liberation are invariable: Sita, Lakshmana, Rama. In simple terms, your movement to liberation follows a divine mathematics. And that's precise, no matter where you are. Sati Vidhatri Indira Dekhi Amitanup Jahi Jahi Vesha Ajadisur Tehi Tehi Tana Anurup. The variations are being described. Every world has its own variations. There are countless. She sees our own personality, Sati. Countless Brahmani, Brahma's consort. Countless Lakshmi. And gods in countless forms. Dekhe jaha taha sabhupati jete, shakti ne sahit satal surat tete. Wherever Rama was, he was being adored by all the gods, along with their spouses, their Shaktis, Devis. Jiva chara charajo sansara, dekhe sakala anek prakara. And in every world, there are countless jivas. Jivas, movables and immovables. In countless variety. Puja hi Prabhu hi deva bahubesha, Rama rupa dusar nahi dekha. In countless ways, in countless forms, God, Rama, is being worshipped. But one thing remains invariable. She doesn't see a different Rama. Rama remains the same. Always understand this allegorical. Go anywhere in the world, truth remains the same. Relative truth changes constantly. Relative realities change constantly. But the absolute truth, Satyam, that never changes. And that's Rama. The extension of Rama is to have soul pursuing Viveka Buddhi, assisted by willpower. When that setup has come to its climax, that setup is the picture of sadhana. Climax is where all the three are perfectly at rest. Victory has been attained, and that state is being revealed to Sati constantly. Soi Raghubar soi Lachmanu Sita, Dekhi Sati ati bhai sabhita. Same Rama, same Lakshmana, same Sita. Sati became terrified. Terrified simply means dazzled. Just like when Arjuna saw the cosmic form of Krishna, he was dazzled and in a way extremely shocked and terrified. And he says, "Oh Lord, come back to your normal form. I can't bear it." Hridaya kampatan sudhi kachu nahi, nayan mudi baithi jagmagamahi. Her heart began to tremble. Her body, she lost control over her body. She closed her eyes and sat down. Bahuri bile kyu nayana ughari, Kachuna dikata dacha kumari. Then she opened her eyes, and all that vision that she had vanished. And all that she saw was Rama, Sita, and Lakshmana. Puni puni nai Rama padasi sa. Chali taha jaha rahe girisa. Bowing her head down to Rama again and again, she proceeded towards where Shiva was waiting for her. Gai sameep mahesh tab. Hasi puchi kushalat. लीन paricha kavan vidhi. Kahu satya sababat. Now Shiva, smilingly, because it was Shiva's project, to let Sati, who was playing the role of intellect, turn into intuition. So this was well-planned divine project. And that applies to every soul. The intellect in you is not meant to stay as it is. It may take many births, it may take single birth, but intellect is meant to become intuitional. And that you can't avoid. That is a profound destiny that awaits every soul. Speaking in an ordinary language, rivers have their goal in the ocean. All souls have their goal in realization of the self. But many rivers may wander away, but no matter how much they may wander away from the ocean, they will ultimately go into the ocean. Sati samujhe raghubir prabhau, bhai bas siv san kinna durau. Sati was well aware of the way Rama showed his Maya, his cosmic form. And she was unable to tell that to Shiva. She concealed that fact. In storyline, she conceals it. In mystical, real line, intellect has no way to explain it. It is beyond the grasp of the intellect. First stage, you are very proud of your intellect. You will understand anything in the world. Second stage, you realize what you have to know is beyond imagination. The entire universe is I am. The intellect that is sticking to a little monkey, I am. So that's the predicament of Sati. She says to Shiva that, "O Lord, why should I test him? I also, jo tum kaha sumirshana hoi, more man pratiti ati soi." What you told me could never be a lie. With that understanding in my mind, I did the same thing. Kin pranamu tumari nai. They say, "Oh, just like you bow down to him." I also said, just such that. तब शंकर देख्यो हरि ध्याना, सती जो छकिन चरित सब जाना. Lord Shiva is playing the part of Guru. Sati is playing the part of spiritual aspirant. And Guru's role is to allow the intellect of the spiritual aspirant to become intuitional. First stage, verbal knowledge, indirect knowledge. Second stage, a mix-up with grace that allows your intellect to come to a grip of something that dazzles it, something that blows it away. Then intellect regains a little bit of its stability. It is through that intellect the entire Ramayana story is assimilated. Sati then becomes Parvati. We'll hear that story. And Shiva ultimately tells the entire Ramayana, and all that becomes a joyous experience. Bauri Rama Majahi Sirunawa, Preri Satihi Jahi Jhoot Kahawa. Shiva bowed down to the glory of Rama, Rama's Maya, the power of Maya Shakti, that made Sati turn to as if lying, that she didn't do anything. There was no lie about it. She didn't do anything. It was Rama who bewildered her. Sati kin Sita Karavesha, Shiva Urbhayo Vishad Vishekha. In the storyline, Sati has assumed the form of Sita. Sita is Rama's wife and consort. And Rama is Shiva's Ishtadevata, Shiva's deity. Now, one who is a devotee of Shiva, rather one who is a devotee of Rama, how can he bring a relationship with someone who has acted as Sita? We'll figure that out. So in a storyline, it is that type of situation. In mystical line, it is the way things have to happen. Intellect pretends to be intuitional. And then Shiva's role is lead the intellect to be really intuition, not pretending, not in the stage of affirmation, in the state of realization. Try to see also the words Sati and Sita. Your intellect in the early stage as a daughter of Daksha, ego, personality, is Sati. Same Sati becomes Uma. Uma is same as Sita. It's another aspect of Uma is Sita. Sita and Uma. Uma means same, Devi. Param punitana dai tadi kiye prem bada papu pragatin kahat mahesh kuch hriday adhik santapu. Shiva, in a storyline, cannot hold the same relationship with Sati. And Shiva develops internally a will not to be wedded to Sati until Sati undergoes a transformation. In mystical line, the soul that has been accustomed to intellect at a higher level of evolution, the soul will not be satisfied with normal intellect. That means aspiration has started. Tab Sankar Prabhu Pad Sirunava Sumirat Ram Hriday Asa Ava. Shiva bowed his head to Rama, the lotus feet of Rama, and he came to understand, came to this decision that as long as Sati stays in her body, she will not have the same setup of relationship with him. She will not be his normal wife. Ehitan Sati bhet mohinahi. In this body, Sati will not be joined with Shiva. Shiva Sankalpa Kinda Manamahi. And this was the Shiva Sankalpa, Shiva's mighty will. It's another way of saying Dhridavrata, When a soul develops a mighty will, may I attain liberation. That's an echo of Shiva Sankalpa. The Atma within you is Shiva. It has made a Sankalpa. I will have nothing to do with that intellect. I love it, but now it must get out of its caterpillar state. But all the time, love is there. Shiva now passes his time with Sati, telling various Puranas, stories. In other words, this is a stage of upasana. When that firm conviction and resolve has come, may I attain liberation. Now what is needed is to bring purity in your mind by listening to devotional stories, the role of upasana. Must understand role of karma, upasana, jnana. Role of karma is to purify your heart. Role of upasana is to remove distractions. And then when these two have been accomplished, then jnana becomes effective. Asbichari sankaru mantri dhira, chale bhavan sumirat raghubira, chalat gagan bhai gira suhai, jai mahesh bhali bhagati didhai. With that firm resolve, he made a vrata and he started moving towards his Kailasha mountain, his abode. At that time, a celestial voice roared through the sky. Jai Mahesh, glory to Shiva. You have given a great example of devotion. You have made the path of devotion firm. Now, whenever a profound resolve develops in a person, certain things happen that is not perceptible. What happens? Your conscience speaks out loud. Bravo! What you have done is most wonderful. But while your conscience speaks out loud in your heart, there is a radiation of your energy around that also flutters in a special way. That what you have determined within you is not private. Sometimes people come up with in a close-knit family. They come up with something very fulfilling, very satisfying. And then people look at around him, father or mother, say, what's the secret? What has happened? As if they have heard the Akashvani. Asapad tum binu karai ko ana, Ram Bhagat Samaratha Bhagavana. Who else can make such a powerful resolve? You are the devotee of Rama. You are all powerful. Suni nabhagira sati urasocha, pucha sivahi samet sakocha. Having heard these words, ethereal words, Akashvani, Sati, with a sense of comprehension in her mind and with great shyness, she asked Shiva, Kinha kavan panakahu kripala, Satyadhama prabhudina dayala, Yadapi sati pucha kachunani bahupati, Tadapi na kaheu tripura arati. O Lord, what pledge have you taken? What type of resolve did you make? You are the abode of truth. You are Deen Dayalu, all those who are who seek surrender to you, you bless them. She asked Shiva in many ways, but Shiva stayed quiet. Not because Shiva didn't want to say it, because it's a matter of experience. Even in ordinary things, if you have eaten very delicious food, and you come to a close friend or a close relative, and the relative asks, how was it? Except for a few words, you cannot exactly say something that will bring the taste that you have enjoyed into the mouth of the other person. So no matter how, whichever way one may ask, ultimately you have to eat it and enjoy it. So it is indescribable. The spiritual bliss is indescribable. So, but the asking state of sati is a positive state, intellect that goes on inquiring into what is the truth. And it has two stages. First, it secures indirect knowledge, theoretical knowledge. But second, it has to go into a process of transformation. Sati goes into a process of transformation. That's the highlight of Ramayana story. Sati hridaya anuman kiye sab janeu sarvajna hin kapatu mein sambhusan nari sahaja ajara yajna. Sati came to realize that Shiva knows all that. How I disguised myself as Sita. I tried to delude Rama. I did this deceitful act. How miserable, being just a little woman. Must realize always that woman comes in Ramayana. The woman term relates to soul that is blended with threefold defect: seer, seen, and sight. That's the description of relative consciousness. When you are experiencing dream, the dream subject is not real. The dream world is not real. The dream experiences are not real. And your consciousness expressing in three ways, that's the woman. This is three. Three together. Three illusions together. So all shameful things, degrading things, come from this setup of consciousness trapped by the triad. And it is that is three aspect that is degraded, condemned, laughed at, ridiculed, again and again in the Ramayana. People not having that profound insight, they went after Tulsidas himself, that he was a narrow-minded sage. Jalupaya saris vikai, dekhahu priti ki riti bali, bilago hoi rasujai, kapata katai paratapuni. See the role of, the function of kapat. Kapat is deceit. Kapat, just I'm trying to give you a subtler meaning behind it. Pat is cloth. You have put a cloth on your head. And if you are and that cloth is fitting you in a normal way. But suppose you are a wolf and put on the cloth of a lion. That's kapat. A deceitful appearance. But turning to the Ramayana context, Tulsidas ji says, when milk and water are blended, or even just plain milk, If you put kapat khatai, put something, a little sour pickle into it, milk will be curdled. The water will separate from the milk stuff. That has a practical reality in day-to-day life. You must realize Ramayana gives many messages. In practical life, if you want to have a friendly relationship with people, don't bring that pickle. Kapat khatai. Don't do any deceitful act. Once it has happened, then meeting together will be difficult. हृदय सोच समुझत निज करनी, चिंता अमित जाई नहीं बरनी, कृपा सिंधु शिव परम अगाधा, प्रगटन कहेउ हो मोरा अपराधा. Now in her heart there is great thinking process. Hridaya soch, lot of soch. Soch is thoughts. Chinta amit. Chinta term literally is worry. But mystically here it means chintan. Lot of reflection. What does Shiva mean? Shiva is so profound. He knew my default. And he didn't state it literally, verbally. He kept it quiet. He didn't say, oh Sati, why did you behave like that? Shankar rukha avaloki bhavani, mo prabhu mohita jau tirdaya apulani. But in her heart, Sati developed a sense of restlessness, that she cannot join with Shiva wholeheartedly. Shiva has created a separation, that until Sati becomes purified, comes to another personality, Shiva will not accept her. Until intellect becomes intuitional, this enlightened soul will not accept it. Sankar rukha avaloki bhavani, prabhu mohita jau hridaya apulani, nijag samuchi na kachu kahi jai, tapai ama iva ura adhikari. Internally, aspiration, restlessness of aspiration, hridaya apulani. Mumukshutva, burning aspiration. The term burning, aspiration for God realization. When you describe it, if it is intense, it's called burning aspiration. But not burning is figurative, it is something blissful. But your heart is not at rest, just like a bird that can fly. Seeing a destination that is extremely inspiring, the bird cannot rest until spreads its wings and soars. So there is a burning desire, let me fly. So try to understand the term burning. In ordinary worries and anxieties that burn your heart in a negative way. But spiritual aspiration creates a spiritual fire. And that fire is of a different type. Nij agasamuji. In the storyline, considering her fault, why did she commit the fault? In mystic line, understanding the fact that as long as intellect stays intellectualized, that's the default. You cannot have liberation. So allow your intellect to turn into intuitional level. And that's possible if you inject in your process bhakti and jnana. Bhakti has a powerful effect. Bhakti sweeps away all your mental distractions, and jnana places a torchlight before you. Sati sasoch jani vrishaketu, kahin katha sundar sukhahetu. Lord Shiva, seeing Sati in the state of chinta, he began to tell wonderful stories from the Puranas to entertain her mind. So while your vichar, aspiration becomes a keen burning fire, during that time, listen to the devotional stories, upasana. Upasana cools that the destructive aspect of that fire. In other words, there are stages. Do your karma yoga that purifies your heart, removing mala. Do upasana that removes vikshepa, distractions. Go on doing this until intellect is ready to become intuitional. Shiva is promoting that to happen. He's paving the path leading to enlightenment. Sati basahika lasatab adhika socha manamahi maramanukau ko janakachu jugasama divasa vijsirahi. Sati started living in Kailasha. In her mind there was a great sorrow. Sorrow I have described, this is not ordinary sorrow. It is spiritual aspiration, burning aspiration. And every day began to appear to her like a whole yuga. That also seems in the storyline like a terrible misery. But the idea behind it, your goal is to attain liberation. And liberation is not dependent on time. If your mind develops that ability to swallow up time, the time concept, a day can become a yuga. A yuga can become a day. A day can become a moment. But you have to figure that out. How can that happen? Because this is a play of projection, just like in a cinema show. The story that is being projected, they may show you 100 years have passed and history has changed, and all right within half an hour while you sit watching the cinema show. But while all this is going on, in between the two frames, screen shines up, timeless. Millions of years have been projected on consciousness. But all those years are not reality, they are maya. The reality shines forth at every step. If you are intuitional, then you don't go after the vrittis, thought waves, but you go after that subtle mystic space between the thought waves. You go after the mystic revelation between the two projections. In other words, just like during the day you go through all types of chores and worries, in sleep you are stripped of all. You have come to eternity. But sleep doesn't give you that enlightenment, and that enlightenment is your goal. And the goal is not dependent on time. It is dependent upon cutting the illusion of time. So every day for her was a whole yuga. You have to figure that out. And with this I'll conclude. Om Shri Ramaya Namah. Om Namah Shivaya. Om Purnamadaha Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti.